we have such a routine life that, and I love our routines, but getting out of our routines gives them practice about not knowing what to do in a given situation and thinking through, how to handle it. And that's a skill that if you live a very routine life, doesn't come up so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're the Midlife Guys. So on last week's show, we kicked off our 3-part series focused on midlife travel. And as I mentioned, March is the time when most older millennials and younger Gen X, or Zennials, pull the trigger on their spring and summer travel plans, according to Condé Nast, The Points Guy, and other travel trade publications. So last week, we took a deep dive into why midlifers love to travel. And this week, we're going to discuss the how behind the travels. We're joined by Andrew and my good friends, Abbie and Greg, who have visited a lot of countries with their 3 beautiful children. Now, one of the biggest challenges that midlifers face when traveling is traveling with their kids. But that's not stopping them. As I mentioned in last week's episode, research from the Family Travel Association and New York University shows that 92% of parents plan to travel with their children over the next 12 months. Why? 84% of parents say travel makes their kids more adaptable to new experiences. 61% of parents say that travel has a positive impact on their child's happiness. An overwhelming majority say that travel is a great way to break their kids away from digital devices and social media. Parents also want to give their kids the experiences that they did not have when they were growing up. So for this episode, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to play the facilitator. I want our listeners to hear directly from our guests, so I'm going to let them do most of the talking. With that, we would like to introduce Greg and Abbie.
Yeah, welcome, Greg and Abbie. We're excited to have you on. As Mike mentioned, they're friends of ours. Actually, Abbie, Mike, and I all went to school together, to college. So we've known each other for 20-ish years now, which is kind of crazy.
20 years.
Time flies, and it's a recurring theme on this podcast. We remind ourselves that we're getting older in lots of different ways. So having 20-plus year friendships is a fun way to do that. But they're awesome. And kind of in our friend group, they've really set the bar for travel and for traveling consistently. And one thing I know, I think both Mike and I have been impressed with is how much they prioritize travel for their family, especially for their kids, even from a really young age, kind of going back to some of those stats that Mike just talked about. So we thought they'd be the perfect people to ask about the how piece of it, since they've got so much experience with it. So I know we're excited to jump into the conversation, and welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you guys on.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
Nice.
I would also like to thank you for being here and for sharing your experiences with our listeners. So let's kick things off. I would love to learn about how you plan your trips. You all have been to some far-flung places with your children, so I can only imagine it takes a lot of planning. Can you explain to everyone how you choose your destinations and how you plan to go to that destination with your kids?
Well, Abbie, I'll throw that to you. Abbie is definitely the planner in our relationship. So she is really the pro at kind of planning and making this happen. So Abbie, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I really love to travel, and I really didn't want to stop once we had kids. I didn't want to wait 20 years to do the thing that I really enjoy again. So for me, it was just, okay, let's figure out the logistics. And I think the most important first step for every person trying to travel with kids, or every trip in general, is to set appropriate expectations for what the trip can be and what it cannot be anymore if you're comparing it to your travels before children. So you need to accept that the trip is going to look different and feel different. It will have a different focus. And as soon as you kind of accept that and plan from that perspective, everyone has a better time. The kids do, you do. So at first it feels like a big step back. But what happens is every year your kids get another year older. So what you're able to do with them builds from year to year. And that becomes exciting too. And this force shift creates new opportunities to take in and observe the places you're going from a new perspective. Seeing things from your kids' eyes, I think, is one of the best parts of being a parent. Doing it while you're traveling magnifies that. And it makes you notice things that maybe that you weren't noticing before if you were running from destination to destination to, site to site to site, and you didn't stop to observe how families actually live there or different things like that. It adds a whole new aspect to your travel. So appropriate expectations. This next thing is flexibility. I wish we could be more flexible on the budget, but we aren't. So you have to be flexible with the other things that you can control. So for budget wise, we utilize travel points as best we can in the way that makes sense for our family, that doesn't compromise any financial goals, that, doesn't cause any troubles for us that way. The next thing you can control is timing. That will save you the most amount of money going anywhere during shoulder season versus peak season. It improves your experience too. You might need to wear a jacket or you might need to have a raincoat, but there's so many fewer crowds, more lodging availability. There's usually better pricing. And then destination. At any point in the year, it's somebody's shoulder season. So if my timing is boxed in by school trips or work commitments, where in the world is having their shoulder season in the window of time when I can travel? Where also then can I fly direct so that we can simplify the travel day getting there? Where can I eliminate pain points like missed connections or different things like that? And then which airline or which country right now seems to be ramping up their tourism efforts? And so their historically lower cost flights to that destination that we've seen for the past 5 or 10 years. Well, maybe that's an opportunity if you can get on the front end of that. And then which countries or which locations have the infrastructure set up that's going to make things easier for my family? Oh, and this particular city has this service that will, you give them the address of your rental and they will have a baby crib and a stroller and a car seat waiting for you when you get there. Well, that has eliminated a lot of worries before you even start.
Wait, sorry, do cities do that? Is that like...
Oh, yeah, we've done that in multiple... Yeah, we've done that in several places. We've just shown up and within 30 minutes, a crib is delivered, a car seat is delivered, a stroller is delivered. We don't have to carry any of that with us as we fly.
That's amazing.
There.
I had no idea that cities did that. I just assumed you had to lug all that stuff with you. Well, I guess
you have to sometimes you have to search for it, but I mean, they're popping up more and more.
Wow,
I think as
cool.
millennials travel more, as millennial moms are often the ones responsible for these side of the logistics. People are seeing an opportunity there in different countries and different cities, even domestically. This is a thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and
you get
it's been really
you get this whole
amazing.
gig economy, like this gig economy popping up of people doing that kind of service because it's a tourism heavy area, and they know any day of the week there's going to be a family landing that doesn't have the stroller, doesn't have the car seat, doesn't have the crib.
Yeah.
And that's what they're filling their time with. And for parents, it's a huge relief to not have to either do a trip without all those pretty essential things, or you lug all that from home and try to, check all that on an airplane, which is a huge burden.
It's an extra stress point for sure. That's really cool. Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing I think about is the itinerary. Where we're going, can we build in one experience every day that is going to feel fulfilling for the adults? How can we pair that with one kind of downtime experience for the kids? So when we had only very young kids, all preschoolers, we would only plan one inflexible timing thing a day, one tour, one timed entry thing a day. And then if attitudes and energy were good at the end of the day after that, we could kind of call the audible on the second thing. But after that first thing, you check off that day was a success, and then you have a bailout plan for the rest of the day. You just know this is the exit ramp in the day. And you can utilize family bloggers. I'm not coming up with any of this on my own. I'm Googling like all sorts of things. There are so many family bloggers. Find several that seem to have families that feel similarly tempered to your kids and to your activity level, and see how they've managed the same location. Take their itinerary and look, okay, well, this doesn't interest us, but they didn't do this, but this really interests us, and adapt it from there. You don't have to start at zero by any means for any trip. Those are the big things.
That is so cool.
Yeah, those are all good things. Yeah. I'm curious,
And
do you all have an experience? So the kids thing definitely makes sense to me. And obviously I relate to, I got two kids, and especially the whole like having one thing to do, like kind of being
Yeah.
cognizant, not over programming them for sure. But I'm kind of wondering too, as you all have gotten, as we've all entered midlife, I feel like that's kind of more helpful for me. Like I feel like when I was in my 20s, I could pack 6 things in a day and you could run from like city to city or place to place. And even now it feels like
Mhm.
it's slowing down. So do you all think just like being more midlife, that's helpful too, kind of maybe slowing down or try not to pack as much into a trip? It's good for the kids, but also maybe for you all? Or do you all sometimes feel like you could do more?
I think there was probably some unlearning at the beginning with those first few trips when the kids were really young, and of course we were we were younger too,
Yeah.
where it was a bit of like, no, but the last time we traveled, like we did 5 things, we hit like 5 museums in a
Right.
day, we did like whatever, like we didn't kind of stop, and we kind of had to unlearn that a little bit. So you do kind of learn like, okay, we're just going to enjoy the pace of what it is. We may not hit everything in a week if we're in a big city that we would if we didn't have the kids with us, especially back then. So, and there's still times, our youngest is still kind of young where it's like, yeah, if none of you were here, we might do a little more than we are. We're maybe past that like breakneck, you know, early 20s pace of traveling. Um, and it's just, it teaches you to kind of just relax and enjoy it and kind of, and let it
Yeah.
come to you. Um, I think the itineraries will start to look different, when we're
Yes.
traveling without the kids one day for sure. We might do more. We might do more that just interests us. But it's not a bad thing to be able to just appreciate where you are and kind of let it come to you, and you're doing something great. And it's also teaching the kids that too. It doesn't have to be the busyness and the activity doesn't mean we're having a good time or doing something worthwhile. We're in an amazing city with incredible architecture, or we're, out in nature doing something. It doesn't have to be breakneck. We can all take a breath and just enjoy this.
I think after the pace of the trips taking a huge step back, even though we're building it up a little bit, it's still slower. The thing that has become much more important now is our lodging. It was
Oh,
never
yeah.
really important before. Like, why am I gonna spend a bunch on the lodging? I'm gonna be out from the moment I get up to the time I, like, crash in my bed. I don't need a view. I don't need any of this stuff, like, because 'cause I'm gonna get up the next day and hit the ground running again. Now, we know that we are gonna have to take a midday break.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna need a nap. We're just exiting the napping phase for all of our kids, right? Or, they might be able to last all day, but they're gonna be done at dinner time. And so the ability to let them go to sleep, give them the rest that they need, and for us as adults to still feel in the mix of things and still feel like we are in this new location and take it in, be able to have the view or to hear, have a porch or a patio where we can kind of still feel like we're part of this new destination and soaking it in without being, totally, we're still trapped in our rooms a little bit, but it doesn't feel that way as much. And that has been a shift as we've gotten older. And we like more comfortable accommodations now too. That becomes more important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think a
Oh,
big part of planning too is that you have to set yourself up for success. So, before we even leave, we have like like a Google Maps thing where we put in all the places we're going to go. I always save in every single playground in that city on my Google map. So I know if we find ourselves in a part of the city and our kids are just melting down, that we can say half a mile that way is a really cool playground. Let's go. And they can decompress in a way that kids need to decompress. And we just
Mm.
get to kind of breathe for a little bit. So if there's a playground or a kid friendly restaurant, put it on your map so that anywhere you happen to end up, you know where you can go. And the other thing we do a lot is that if I have, I know I've scheduled a day where it's going to be like kind of tiring for them, or we've never gone on a hike, or we're doing a walking tour and I know that it's longer than they've walked before. We do some practice day trips locally. I take them on local trails. I pack up the car on a Saturday and we do a full day outing to somewhere local, maybe 2 hours away. And so that they have they aren't figuring out the cadence of a travel day in the middle of having to do it. It's already familiar to them, how that day is going to go, how they're going to feel, how long they're going to walk. And so they're not like coming to terms with this in the middle of the time where you're trying to soak in the vibes of a really cool city. You've already done that in a place that's close to home and doesn't feel like the stakes are as high to you.
That's a great idea. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah.
That is great. Thank you so much. So, okay, we've talked a lot about the research, and we've kind of hit upon some of how you're dealing with travel days and what you're doing in some of these destinations. But I'd love for you to dive in a little bit more. It's like travel day itself. I hate travel days, and I'm just one person. So, you tell me how you implement the travel days, and then once you get to a destination, how are you all selecting like that one-timed activity, whether it be a museum or how are you all doing it as a family discussing it, or are you and you both deciding? How are you making these decisions?
Well,
I think where I take over all the planning, Greg is really key. He shines during travel day. I kind of feel like I have gotten us to the starting line. I've set us up for success. And then he is the professional kid wrangler for the travel day.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a real. I get tagged in on travel day. I'm ready to go. I'm rested. I haven't been doing all the planning. So yeah, it's. I mean, from the jump, if we're not flying out of our local airport, if we're obviously going further out, I'm on driving. I'm on wrangling bags. I'm on making sure we've got all our flight times. We've got all the alerts on our phones. We've got the tickets saved down. And some of that is necessity too. We kind of, Abbie, as you touched on earlier, budget and constraints or freezing points or just where we're trying to go. Some of it's out of our control. So is it going to be an early morning flight? Is it going to be kind of a later red eye that we're taking out? Try to avoid doing the super early 5 a.m. flight to save a couple bucks on a ticket. If it's not really going to make a difference, we'll fly out at a time that's normal and reasonable. So then it's kind of, okay, we know how it's going to go, and trying to think ahead, but also, okay, once we land, what's it going to be like? So if we're getting in really early in the morning the next day, do we have kind of snacks and breakfast and stuff packed up because we're going to be landing before we can check into our hotel? So it's going to be a bit of a walking day. We may have to throw our bags in a locker and just kind of get out and go for a little bit. Like Abbie said, do we know where there's some restaurants we can go to? We'll walk around and see some sites, but we know there's some, playground we can kind of just go and lay low. Do we have stuff ready to go, like in our carry-on bag? So if we're doing breakfast in the Uber from the airport, or, when we get to our first destination, are we ready with that? So try to just be ready, because, kids are going to be kids. And so they're going to feel tired, and sometimes you can't help that. And sometimes they just need a snack, and that does, fix half the problem. They're 50% better.
Never underestimate the power of a well-timed snack. A well-timed snack,
are amazing.
Having plenty of snacks is grown-ups too, right? You forget.
Right.
Like,
Grown-ups
do I just need a snack? I just need a snack.
Yeah.
If the snack doesn't fix it, then go from there. But start with snack.
Yeah. So we certainly try to let it unfold the way it has to, because there's logistics, and set expectations for the kids too. Hey, we're going to get there and you're going to be tired, or we're going to get there and it's straight into a car because we actually do have something booked for that first day, which can be dangerous with airline travel, but
we don't do that.
But if we know, what is it going to look like when we land? We try to set expectations. Does it help a lot? No, but you got to, kids have kind of no agency unless you're letting them know what's going to happen. And so the more they can feel like they're not just being totally caught off guard, that helps. And then get them engaged with it too. Let them look at the map. Let them be, the navigator, or at least the backup navigator. If we're in an Uber, okay, tracking on my map too. Like, okay, let's see where we're going. And that kind of pulls them into it rather than just kind of saying, hey, just be quiet, we'll be there in a little bit. Like they get to feel like they're a part of what's happening right now.
That's a
Yeah,
great point
especially as
too.
they get
Yeah.
older. We've had our kids as they get, I mean, not even all that old, 6 years old, saying, okay, we're going to pull up to the airport, but y'all have been to the airport a number of times. So we're going to get there and you're going to tell us everywhere we need to go. So what's the first step? Where does it look like we need to go? They're not actually in control of getting us there, but they feel like they are, and they feel like they've taken the lead in front of their siblings. And that is a point of pride. Okay, we've checked into the flight. All right, where do we go next? Okay, lead us, find the way to the appropriate security desk. That sort of thing. And then, getting off the plane too, right? Like, what do we need to do? Find, follow the signs. We're in this foreign country. To them, especially, it feels very different. Well, how do we find where our luggage is? And it gets them engaged in what they're doing instead of dragging 3 feet behind us and us yelling at them to, like, come on, let's go. Everyone's getting in front of us. Like, we got to get there.
Yeah.
That has been a huge help, especially as our kids get older. And then logistically, from a travel day standpoint, a lot of, we tried our best to utilize travel points where we can. So a lot of those cards come with global entry or TSA pre-check or different things like that. So where can you streamline some of this stuff? If at all possible, can you not check a bag on the trip? Now that our kids are older, we used to check bags for the trip and just take the risk because they could not physically carry their bags through the airport. Right. But now that our 2 oldest are older, they're perfectly capable of pulling their rolly bag. And then that means we get out of there faster. So the way that you mitigate the logistics of an awful travel day is really the same way we do as grown-ups, and not expecting too much from them to begin with.
Yeah. Do you all find, I've just like with my kids too, when we do travel days, it's exciting, right? So at home, I ask them to do something, carry something, move something. It's like pulling teeth. But then, I don't know, we get to the airport, something happens. They're like, oh, I want to carry the bag, or I want to help with this or do that. I'm like,
yeah,
where are you the rest of the time, by the way?
We're not going anywhere cool the rest of the time.
The airport. Right. I know. I'm like, what is it about an airport that you all of a sudden you're all ready to help out?
Yeah, it's there's a novelty there. You can capitalize off of that for a little bit, and the novelty will wear off. But until it does, they can carry their own bag.
That's right. I like it. Yeah.
The airport is such a cool place to engage them too, because it is set up, an international airport is set up for people from all over the world who don't speak the local language to get around. And so that is a cool way that even a young kid can get involved, because they start to recognize, they pick up on, oh, right, that is what the luggage, logo looks like. So that must be where the baggage carousel is. Yeah. This is, okay, that's a taxi stop. We must be heading out the airport to get to a cab or whatever. That, I think, is a great thing that a really young kid on up can start to feel like, oh, I'm a part of making this happen, because they can recognize, signs and symbols and basic things and pick up on all that. So especially if it's been a long flight or if it's been a long travel day, all right, now it's not just sort of head down dragging through the airport. It's, okay, eyes up, let's be engaged. And that can bring the energy up for everybody.
And you got to accept that they're going to be tired. You have to expect at least one kid to have if you have multiple kids, at least one kid is going to have a meltdown. You have to accept that first. But don't let everything stop in its tracks. Were they probably going to have a meltdown that day at some point in the day at the house too? Probably. Yep. So I might as well be, having an adventure if I'm going to be dealing with the meltdowns anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good way to look at it. It's a great way to look at it.
And then finding fun ways to travel, once you've landed somewhere, that making that part of the trip, making that part of the adventure. We were in Madrid, we were going to Barcelona. Taking a high-speed train for our littlest, for our son, was like, oh my goodness, like, what even is this? That he was seeing them coming out of the station, like he was so fired up about this. We're on one, got the thing inside where you can see like how fast the train is going. We kept pointing out to him as it's climbing up higher and higher. We're like, look how fast we're going. And he was like, this is amazing. Did it last the entire trip? No, but did it get us halfway to our destination with him being pretty fired up just to be on a train? Absolutely. Yeah. So that made it worth it, just to make that day more fun for him. And then our older two, like, they found where the snack car was. So they went, they were like, can we go to the car with the food?
Snacks
Yes, of
again.
course.
Yes.
Yeah, snacks
Yeah,
are
I mean, I
really going to
love
keep coming up, I think.
snacks. I love traveling in a way that if somebody has to use the bathroom, it doesn't halt all forward progress. So, like,
Mm.
trains are great. Everyone's kind of intimidated by flying, but I think that a trip where we fly there and then we're there is actually a lot easier in the younger years for us than road trips were for our particular kids' temperaments, maybe for our temperaments too. Um, I would much rather take a long flight than have a long car ride because when we have to stop for bathroom breaks every couple of hours, realistically, um, we don't stop all progress in getting there. We
Yeah.
haven't added all that time to the trip.
Very cool. So for the final segment, I want to devote this to the experience itself. I'd love to hear how you guys feel as parents once the trip is over. Do you feel it was rewarding, exciting, fun, exhausting, all of the above? And how do you feel like in listening to your kids give feedback on the trip? It's like how does that feel as well? I mean, do you see a change in them, how they view the world, how they view different people, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
the rewards have continued to outweigh the challenges. That is for sure. We always don't know what we're going to get out of a trip when we start the trip, but we really do leave each experience with treasured memories. And often it's not what I expected them or us to get out of it. So, until a certain age, those memories were just ours. They didn't remember it. But our experience as parents and our experiences with them little, that matters too. We're not going to just wait until it's entered their long-term memory. And I do think that just because a particular experience doesn't stay in their long-term memory, that it doesn't imprint somewhere in there, creating them to be more flexible, more empathetic, more open-minded people. And they might not ever know where that comes from, but it starts really young before they can remember.
I'm thinking of a particular time when we were traveling and uh, our two oldest were still really young, both like preschool age. And it was probably our third or fourth big trip with our oldest, but she was not even in kindergarten yet. And we were going through the train station, catching a train, going to the airport. And I was watching her pull like her little, very tiny rolly bag, for the flight that I think just had the snacks, of course, had the snacks. Uh, but the confidence that I saw in her at an age that I think she maybe only vaguely remembers and definitely doesn't remember the trips before that. But it was a very cool moment to see like, oh, this is nothing like the rest of our life. We don't live in a massive city. We're not hopping on and off trains and taking escalators to go where we need to go. But she had a real confidence as she was making her way, with me, weaving our way through a crowd. That was a very cool moment to see that, to your point, I'd be like, something's imprinted from all these previous experiences because you're not thrown by this. And this would be very easy for you as a very tiny person who doesn't do this every day to be very thrown off. And she wasn't. It was great.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
every
awesome.
experience. Yeah, every experience we give our kids shapes, I think, how they approach future experiences. That's true at home. It's true on trips too. You don't have to be traveling for that to be true. But I think being out of your element opens everyone in the family up a little bit more for those things to mean something, for us to notice, to take the time to notice that. We have such a routine life that, and I love our routines, but getting out of our routines gives them practice about not knowing what to do in a given situation and thinking through, how to handle it. And that's a skill that if you live a very routine life, it doesn't come up so much. And,
Mhm.
these trips gives them the opportunity to do that. And there's a confidence in knowing that I can handle this. I can think through it and or mom and dad don't know what to do and they're thinking through it, like your kids think you know everything, realizing that your parents also have to think through issues and seeing that it's not an emergency if we don't exactly know what to do next, that we'll figure it out, that there's a real security and confidence in learning that early on.
Yeah. And I think that's I don't want to say it's a pressure, but it's something we try to be aware of when we're traveling too is what's the attitude we're bringing to it? What's the mindset to the travel days, to the earlier point? Are we, frustrated and angry that we're in an airport or that our flight got delayed an hour or something? Or can we show that it's okay. Or when things go wrong as you're kind of going around in an unfamiliar place, something doesn't work out quite right. Can you just show a good reminder for yourself to be adaptable, but also like, your kids are watching you. So is every little setback a big deal? Or is it, yeah, that happened. So we'll figure out what happens next. And we've had those moments where kids are like, well, wait, so now what? And you can see they're a little nervous because we're out of our routine. They have no idea where we are. And the person for our Airbnb didn't show up to let us in, or, the place we thought we were going is closed. So what's our, how do we audible? And, we're figuring it out in real time, but we can show them that ability to just, yep, we're going to roll with it. We're going to take a minute. We'll figure out what's next. And, at the end of the trip, we're all still standing. So it means everything worked out for the most part. And we're all fine. And it's a great lesson for them to take away too, is that you can deal with hard things or minor inconveniences and not let it throw you. And that things typically do work out if we, and we can just stick together and not lose our heads. It can actually be fun as we're figuring it out.
I think that's such a great point. We talked last week about kind of the core memories that you make from travel and like the positive parts about that. And I think that's all really important. But I think I'll bring up a really valid point about your kids are learning all the time. And so really thinking about how you're handling situations kind of impacts them. And travel is a great way to demonstrate that adaptability. And I know something that I don't usually think about, but I think it's a great point. Another reason why this type of travel is helpful for families and especially for kids, because you're going to get curveballs on travel and in life, and you've got to just kind of figure out how to roll with it. And those are really valuable lessons.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I've seen, our kids have had the firsthand experience of trying to order lunch in a restaurant where they don't speak the language, or navigating public transit, or buying tickets, or, like playing on a playground with a bunch of kids who don't speak the same language as them. And yet they still somehow figure out how to play a very cool game, even though no one really knows what the other person is saying. So I think turning the tables on them, for them being the ones where they feel the sense of discomfort, for them not being the ones able to communicate, suddenly there's a new sense of understanding about what the 3 ESL kids in their class are going through, what they're navigating every single day. It's no surprise to me that often our kids find themselves on group projects with classmates who aren't yet fluent in English. And I think that the traveling that we've done, they might not be able to connect the two, but I do think that it has a big impact on their patience and their understanding to what other people might be going through in their own community. Well, I feel very comfortable here, but I know what it's like to feel very fish out of water in a place where I'm trying to figure things out.
And to be in that unfamiliar place and see a person who doesn't maybe look like you or speak your language welcome you in and be welcoming and be kind, to know how good that feels, and to make that connection that we are all just people. So someone may look different. Someone may be from a place that doesn't look anything like where you grow up and where you live every day. And they're people just like you. And so it's such a powerful lesson. And the goal, of course, is that it teaches them to look at other people very differently, and to see that, to have that acceptance, because everyone is ultimately the same. Even if we're living very different lives, we're all people, we're all human beings. And so it's a great connection to see made, as they get out and have to be the one who's a little out of water.
Yeah. Well, I'm inspired to book another trip. Let's go.
Yeah.
Gotta go somewhere else now.
I was a little jealous. We ended up meeting up with you guys. We were in Spain at the same time as you. Only you didn't have your kids with you. And at the time, I was a little jealous that you just got to stroll on.
We did kind of just took our time. Yeah, no. I mean, it is funny. We're now taking our kids on more and more trips, which I think is great. And again, I've been inspired by how you all have done that with your kids for so long. And I do think there's a balance too, right? Like I know at least for Jesse and me, like we take our kids on most trips, but sometimes it's nice for the two of us to kind of get away. Although I will say though, Greg, earlier you mentioned the train from Madrid to Barcelona, but you didn't mention the best part of being in Madrid was seeing us there.
I buried the lead. I did. Well,
I think we took a snack break. We got ice cream.
That's exactly what we did.
Spilled it all over.
So the kids got ice cream. We all got a drink. It was a beautiful day though. We were in Retiro Park, which is this incredible park in Madrid. And like we hung out there for like an hour and a half or something. It was great. But it's like, I think it goes back to your point too, Abbie, earlier, of just slowing down and just appreciating being somewhere different, and appreciating, to Greg's point too, the connectedness amongst everyone. I think travel really can be very powerful in that regard. And as I said, I'm like pumped up I'm gonna talk to Jesse. We got to get some more trips on the books.
It's so fun. I mean, unexpected things happen. Like on that trip, our
Yeah.
kids left that home. Not a single tooth was loose. As we were entering Sagrada Familia, one of my kids' teeth just falls out of their face. Like it just, and we're like, well, put it in your pocket. Let's go through this tour. And then, we kind of got to the rest of the trip. We got to talk about if the tooth fairy will bring euros or dollars, like what's going to happen. And that has become, this has become a core memory for our family. Our kids will often think about what went wrong on some of these trips, like things that did not go to plan that I did not like control for. And our kids tell these stories with pride and with humor. And they take a sense of ownership of these things. Like, remember that time. And it's, in the moment, was it frustrating or ridiculous or like very inconvenient? Probably, yes. But like, you got to know now with that perspective, this is actually what our kids like laugh about. This is what we laugh about. And so if you realize that that's coming out of this inconvenient situation, then you can kind of roll with things a little bit easier, have the better attitude yourself, because you're like, well, we're going to be talking about this until our kids are, our age.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Guys, Greg, Abbie, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your stories with us. I know I have learned a lot out of this discussion. And I know that our listeners will definitely be better prepared to take adventures with their kids thanks to your guidance. All right, so we have blown through 30 minutes. If you've not done so already, please like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us a lot. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. And until next week, good luck, guys.
See ya.